After we have our ramp 2 corridor in there, we're going to have to modify the template for that ramp 2 corridor so that we can move the edge of pavement to the other side of that ramp 2 baseline. So currently everything is now to the south or to the right side of ramp 2, and we want to move this line, the edge of shoulder and the edge of pavement on the south side, we want to move that up to the baseline since this is a ramp. And we want to add some in conditions to it because currently there are none. So to do that, we're going to zoom in here and find the magenta dashed line that represents that template drop. And if you let your mouse rest on it, it'll tell you the name of the template drop and the stations that it runs from and to. So we're going to left click on that, get the heads up display. The second tool in there is to edit the template drop. Okay, and that is going to be step 8 in this creating the corridors portion of this exercise. So what it does is it pulls up the template drop that is in this file. So it kind of looks like it pulls up the template library and that you might be editing that. But in this particular case, since you pulled it from the actual drawing, this is the templates being used in the drawing. Okay, and so on step 8, letter A there, we're going to make the template origin point the asphalt surface TEOP, which is this location right here. So we're going to change it from here, the asphalt T centerline, to the asphalt surface TEOP. So the way we do that is we right click over the red point for the edge of pavement, and we go down here and say change template origin. We left click on that, and then we'll slide everything over and make that now the new origin. The thing about origins is you really don't want any kind of constraints on an origin, so we're going to remove those constraints from that EOP point. So we're going to right click on that EOP point, and we're going to go down here and say delete those constraints. That should turn your point green, and now we have 2 green points. And so the asphalt surf TCL, that needs to have some constraints applied to it. So we're going to to add that horizontal, again we're going to right click on that point, add constraint, go to horizontal, and we're going to be basing it off of the EOP. So we'll left click on the EOP and we'll give it a negative 18 foot. That's going to modify that and make that point yellow. Then we're going to right click on it, add constraint, and we're going to do a slope. And we're also going to base it off that same point, so we're going to left click on it and say negative 2%. And apply that, and it should look like what we see in the dialog here. Okay, once that's placed in there, we're going to go in and add some in conditions on the right side of this. And the in conditions we're going to add is going to be the guardrail widening. So over here on the left hand side, I'm going to close up the components and go into in conditions, go to combined, and we're going to do guardrail widening. And how you get that out there is just left click on it and hold and drag it out. If it's not on the right side, then you right click and reflect, and that'll flip it over. Okay, so we're going to right click, reflect there, and then all you have to do is just move it to where that edge of asphalt surface TEOS point, we move it over the top, point turns white, which means they're going to merge together, and we'll left click to place that on there. If I fit the view inside of there, now it should look something like this, where I have in conditions, I have this being my template origin, and this point now being red out here for the asphalt surf TCL. So we'll say OK to that, and you should see out on your screen it'll automatically update and change, and it'll give you your in conditions. It's now moved the surface off to the left hand side. Okay, so for the pavement. So now we have something that looks more like a ramp. Now the other side, as I mentioned earlier, ramp 2, the stationing runs from the left to the right. Ramp 4 runs from the right to the left. So basically we just kind of almost need to mirror that over. To do that, we're going to use the template library organizer, and we're going to copy this and put it in our ITL and then use it for the other side. Okay, to do that, we're going to go back to the tasks, corridor modeling, and we're going to open up the create template, the one with the hammer on it. And inside of here, you can see that on the left hand side here, we don't have anything for our job number in here. So we're going to create a folder for our job number. I'm just going to kind of close everything up, and I'm going to right click on this top line, the very top folder, and I'm going to do a new folder. Okay, that new folder is going to be the job number, J5P0100. Now there's nothing in that, so what we want to do is we want to use the one that we created inside of our drawing, inside of our DGN file. We want to pull that into this J5P0100. So to do that, we go up to the top under Create Template, and we'll go to Tools, and we'll go to this Template Library Organizer. What that does is it'll open up another dialog that shows everything that we have currently in our file and then where we can place it. So over on the left hand side, if we expand that out, we'll see our job number over here. On the right hand side, available in the active design file. If it's not in the active design file, you can actually come over here and select these triple dots and go choose a file that it is currently in. For this one, we're going to double click on the active design file corridors. You can see we got corridors for Bighorn and Ramp 2. I want to copy the one we did for Ramp 2. So I'm going to expand that out. And you have to be very careful here. What we're going to do is drag and drop. We want to drag it right over the top of the J5P0100. If you hit some of these other folders, what they'll do is they'll go ahead and open up and start expanding. And so we don't want that to all happen. It takes a little while to get to where we want to go if that starts happening. So what we want to do is just left click on this asphalt pavement, one lane, and drag it right over the top of the job number and let go. Once you do that, you can double click on J5P0100 on the left window, and you should see that was copied over. Once that gets copied over, we'll click OK, and it'll ask if you want to save that. We do want to save the ITL, so we'll say yes. And now over here in our window, we should have our J5P0100 on the left. Now you can expand that out. What we're going to do is just going to rename it to something that we can utilize later. So we're going to go out and right click on that asphalt pavement one lane. We're just going to right click on it and do a rename. And we're going to call it ramps. And then in parentheses, we're going to do one lane minus 18 feet. Close the parentheses. And so later we can select that one, and we're going to use that for ramp 4, and we're also going to use it for our radius returns. Okay, if you want to see what that looks like over in the right window, we can just double click on it and see that it's an exact copy of what we just did out there. And also the name up here at the top says our new name. Okay, so what we're going to do is close that, and it's going to ask us to save it, and we do want to save it. It's saving it in the ITL in our coal folder. So we'll say yes to that. And then we're ready to go out and create the corridor for the other side. So we're going to go ahead and do that here. So just hit F4 to get out of any tool. And we'll go to Tasks. And in our corridor modeling tools, we'll hit that first icon there, Create Corridor. And Create Corridor Baseline. It wants us to locate it. We're going to pick that ramp 4. And move into a blank area, and we're going to right click for it to use the active profile. We're going to name this one. Just move your mouse a little bit and it will highlight the name, and we'll call it ramp 4 and enter that, and it'll create a ramp 4 corridor. Next thing it asks for is what template drop that you want to use. We're going to use the same template drop that we used to create ramp 2. I'm not sure if it's picking the right one or not. It looks like it is, but I always want to be sure, so I'm going to hit the Alt button, hold it down, and hit the down arrow, and I'm going to go make sure that it's picking it from this location, and that should be under Components, Pavement New, and Asphalt Pavement One Lane Asphalt Surface. But now that's the old one, correct? So we don't want to use that one, because if we use that one, we're going to have to go out and modify all this stuff again. So since we copied that other one over, what I'm going to do is close out the components and open the J5P0100. Now you'll see when we pick that ramps one on the right hand side, we'll see that it's the new updated one. So that saves us a lot of time just by copying it from the template library organizer, copying it out of this file, putting it in our ITL, and now when we pick this one, all of our edits are already done for us, so we don't have to redo them. So that's what I want to do here. We'll click OK. It should pull it up on the screen for us that that's the one that wants to use the ramps. So we'll left click to accept that. And then again, it's going to ask us where do we want to go from and to. So we're going to go from 0 plus 55 for our start. And we'll hit enter on that to lock it in. It should draw us a little dashed line right here across ramp 4. We'll accept it. Our next station is going to be 3 plus 55. We'll enter that in. Move our mouse around a little bit and we'll go ahead and accept that location. Our drop interval is going to be 5. Make sure you put that in. Accept it, and then you can just accept the rest of the prompts to place that template. Okay. So now since we've done that, it automatically knows it's 18 foot wide. It automatically knows to put it right on ramp 4 for between the edge of shoulder and the edge of pavement, and it puts our end condition out there for us. So all that just from copying that template over. So that's a very useful item. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do something in here for adding a point control. So we're on step number 11 right now, and we're going to go out here and add a point control to ramp 4 corridor for matching the vertical and the horizontal location of ramp 2. So if I zoom in here, you can see that 18 foot wide doesn't quite get ramp 4 to meet up to ramp 2. And so what I'm going to do is create a point control that makes it do that. So I'm going to hit F4. And our point controls, we're going to do it off of ramp 4. So one of the ways to do a point control is to find the edge of the corridor for ramp 4, which there's a little green line or a grip that we can left click on. And it's usually back at the beginning. So we're going to left click on that, and we're going to go over to the corridor creation tools, which is the little hammer on that heads up display. We'll drop that down. We'll take a look at creating a point control. So go down the list of tools that are in there, and you'll find the Create Point Control tool. We'll left click on that, and now we want to know where we want to go from and to on this point control. Okay, so in your book on step number 11, we've got the point control, we've got ramp 4. We're going to start at the intersection snap of a center line of bighorn, or a center line of ramp 4 and the bighorn edge of pavement. So here's the center line of ramp 4, this yellow line, and there's an edge of pavement here where it hits the bighorn edge of pavement. So at that location is what we're looking for. Now a lot of times it's difficult to see in here what's going on because we have a lot of things turned on. So in this tool, I'm just going to go up to the reference dialog, and for the 3D, I'm just going to turn off the display for that. That makes it really easy to find the things that we want to find. Okay, so it wants us to place the intersection snap to the center line of ramp 4 and the bighorn edge of pavement. So that's this location right there. Okay, so for start, we're going to come down here into our snap tools, and we're going to get the intersection snap. And this is very important. I am not going to use the snap tools to do this. What I'm going to do is just let my mouse rest right over that intersection. And we should get the gold X. Once you get that gold X, and it tells you here that it's a complex element, it's the right asphalt surface TEOP1 of bighorn, what I'm going to do is left click on that point. Just left click to start there. Okay, then it has the end station, and our end station is going to be 3 plus 55. So we're just going to do a 3 plus 55, hit enter. What that's going to do is get us to the end of our template drop there, so we'll left click that. Our control description, I always want to put some description in here so we know exactly what this is doing, because later on if we look at our core objects tool, which is the bucket tool, if we look at that, all our point controls will be listed there, and we may not know what they do exactly just by the stationing. So what we do is we put in a description for that. So for this one we're going to do ramp 4 match ramp 2. And we'll enter that in. Now in this one, we're going to do a mode of both because I want the horizontal and the vertical to change for me to go up to match the edge of ramp 2. So what we're trying to do is get ramp 4 edge of pavement to come up and match exactly the ramp 2 edge of pavement. So we're going to control both horizontal and vertical, and we'll accept both. In this case, it's not a control type of linear geometry, it's going to be a corridor feature. So we'll change that. The point that we want to control here, we're going to go down here and find asphalt surface TCL. And what that is the point inside of that template that we want to control. So we want that point, which is that upper left point that used to be the origin point, but now we added different constraints to it, a horizontal of -18 and a 2% slope. And we want to control that point and make it hit the ramp 2 edge of pavement. So the next thing asked for is the corridor feature, so we're going to accept that we're going to use that. We're going to accept the asphalt surface TCL point to control. And then it wants to know what corridor that we're going to try to match. So we're going to go out and pick the edge here of ramp 2. So this would be like the limits of construction line. Or if you can find a green grip on ramp 2, you can pick that. So we'll left click on the ramp 2 corridor. It says locate the reference feature. The reference feature, if we go over back into the dialog, we'll do a down arrow on that. And we're looking for a 3D linear element asphalt surface TCL, which is the same point only on ramp 2. Okay, so we're going to go back and look for that asphalt surf TCL, which is that location right there. So we find it, select it. These things are not typically in any alphabetical order, so sometimes it takes a little bit to find that one, but that's the one we're looking for. Okay, out here on the screen we're going to go out and accept a priority of 1 for that. We're not going to do any horizontal offsets or vertical offsets, so we'll just accept through those. And as we do that, you'll notice that in my case nothing really happened for me. What happens with these point controls right now is that the stationing doesn't always take effect. So what we have to do is hit F4 here. We're going to go find the ramp 4 corridor, and we're going to left click on that grip again for ramp 4. We're going to go over to the hammer tool, the corridor creation tools, and the first tool under there is the corridor objects. We want to pick that bucket tool. Inside of this tool, we want to go look at the point controls. So over on the left hand side, find point control, go ahead and select it, and we'll see that our start and end station nowhere near what we needed it to be. Okay, so there's a few ways to handle this. I know my template drop from earlier goes from 0 plus 55. So I'm going to type in 0 plus 55 for the station and hit enter, and then the corridor is going to re-crank. Sometimes, like you'll see in this instant right here, it did not take it. So what you can do is down in the lower right side, you can try to type in there 0 plus 55, hit enter. And a lot of times that one down here in the right will go ahead and work. As you can see now, it's got the right start station. Okay, so that's the start. Now the end is 3 plus 55, so I'm going to go ahead and do that one down here and enter that in. Let the corridor crank a little bit, and it should change it here for you. Then when we take a look at it, now it's actually kind of working here. What happens in this area right here is our template drops don't go far enough through this section in order for that to solve. What we'd end up doing here is maybe putting a key station in if we needed to solve, but later on we're going to be clipping a lot of that out. So at this point that portion doesn't really matter. If you wanted to, you could come down in to the key stations, and you can hit this add new, and you can put a key station in at this location, and you can see it start to solve a little bit better for you if that's something you needed to do. You can modify this station also if you needed to. So I'm going to close out of the bucket tool now, and you can see now that it matches that location. So now we're right on top of ramp 2, so there's no gap in there. Okay. So the next step that we're going to do in this is we're going to create our 3D radius returns. And so that'll be the next video.